Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about the one and only Turbo Coin. Listen, we're at rank 158 in the world, 300 million market cap, 19 million volume, which, by the way, a 10x from here, this current position is 3 billion. So for me, if I'm looking at a just 10x from literally the spot, that would be phenomenal for me. But to be honest, I do still think is going to go much higher. But ladies and gentlemen, 10x, 3 billion market cap, it's not the craziest thing in the world. 30x, 9 billion market cap. Now that is much more challenging, but also not the craziest thing in the world because we do know meme coins go absolutely parabolic during, altcoin season, right? There is no impossible during altcoin season. That is just the reality. Anyways, right? Let's look at the holders. We can see that we are practically at the all-time high for holders. In fact, we can see we actually made a decent jump from the Saturday to Sunday, going up roughly, what is that, 35 holders. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but to be honest, over the weekend, that's actually a pretty good jump. That's a pretty good jump, especially that, you know, there's no hype around Turbo right now, right? There's no hype. There's no bandwagon. There's none of that. You know, in fact, we've just been selling off slowly and fundamentally. Now, this is me saying this in a positive way because if we're selling off and we're doing things fundamentally and there's no bandwagon, there's no hype, then this is organic growth. And I always value organic growth because, ladies and gentlemen, organic growth means people see value in the project despite the price action, right? People are coming on board despite, not there being consistent news pumped out all the time. The fact that Turbo isn't getting pumped 10, 20, 50% every single day or, had a strong week or anything like that. There's organic growth, and that's a very, very key sign, a very, very good sign. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, right? If we go and look at a different time frame, right, we can overall see that we are kind of just in this channel over here, right? We can see clear as day. This touches really, really extremely well, like to the T right at the bottom. So we can clearly see that we are in this type of channel. Now, the upper side is a little bit more complicated, but it's something like this more or less, right? We can see that we are in this channel, and I do expect for us to break out sooner than later. Now, at this current moment, right, if we go to something like the 4 hour, there's still no confirmation that we have, changed the trend. Okay. We would have to most likely come here, come back down, reject off the 0.0041, and then see sideways movement and a nice break to the upside, then more sideways movement before we can really, really start getting confident with the reversals. And that is just the reality right now, right? That is just the reality of Turbo's situation. We can see when we go to the daily candles, right? We can see that we tapped into this order block right over here, this daily order block, and we got a decent reaction, right? We even see the last few days have been just slower, a little bit more sideways. So this could be the potential reversal. But I do want to see a pullback first to see how we react off of this 4 hour order block to then go sideways and then to continue to push up. Overall, whether or not we go a little bit lower, which I would be surprised personally, it doesn't really matter too much because we are in this very, very important channel, right? Right here, we can see, boom, the 0.0032 area is a very, very key area. And of course, this other key area of practically 0.007, right? It's like 6.9, but practically zero 0.7 is very important. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, that at one point we were in hell. Okay, we were in hell, right? We fell through this big support. It was a little bit scary at one point. I won't lie to you, but then we had a big breakthrough, and then we were selling off, right? And we did say, there's a high probability that we will retest off of these zones. We did, and then we pushed up higher. Unfortunately, the close in terms of the weekly was not, the most optimal, but still, at least we kind of tested off of this zone. And the reason why I said it's good at least we tested off the zone is because the more times a zone gets touched, the less like value it holds, which is why we kind of broke through in this February zone, right? We broke below because we already touched so many times that it actually makes it weaker. So, the fact that we already have one touch here, one touch from the pump here, another touch from the pump here is a really good sign that the next time we go up, right? Next time we go up, even if we go slightly a little bit lower, that the next time we go up, there's a high probability that we actually just burst through. Okay. There is still a chance, of course, of us just tapping for a third time, going back for another pullback before we officially start pumping. But I do think overall that we should be bursting through. I can show you something like ICP quickly that we cover on this channel as well. Right, if I could just find ICP. And if I can't, I might just have to type it. And I guess, oh, there we go. Right. You see ICP. It's in a, diagonal channel right now. And, ICP is struggling compared to something like Turbo, right? People need to be grateful. Turbo is up a good amount from its bottoms, while something like ICP is still ranging near its bottoms. But we can see that we've had, just in terms of pumps from starting when we started to go sideways, we had 1, 2, and 3 rejections. So we can see ICP is setting up for a fourth pump because sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? Sometimes we break out on the third pump, but sometimes we break out on the fourth, which is why I'm showing you this ICP example. But yeah, guys, look, be grateful because we could have been exactly like ICP in terms of price action. In terms of their April bottoms, they are up roughly at this current moment 22%. Given we're meme coin, let's say we would have been even up 30%, 35%. We would have still been fairly low. Even if we're double because we're a meme coin, that would have been what, roughly 40% or something. We would have been literally down here. Like we still, ladies and gentlemen, literally, I need you to look at this right now. We would have been somewhere in this box if we had ICP's type of price action and if it was still double it, right? If it was two times the amount, we still would have been somewhere down here. So people really need to see the power of Turbo. People really need to see the power of this coin and they need to start being grateful because the truth is, you could be underperforming. You could be underperforming like what is that called? Hello Network, right? Hello Labs, right? For the first time in weeks, there's a little resurgence, but it is still in hell practically, right? It is still in hell. Like, yeah, sure, it is finally up a couple of percent, since the low points. But ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this thing is just dumping and dumping and dumping and dumping, which is why I say, be grateful. Be grateful for the toad because the toad is actually performing very, very well. Okay. We just, we're just slowing down a little bit, which is fine. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, we're still ranging between these two ranges, and this is ultimately the bigger picture, right? Is to range and then break out to finally then contest these all-time highs. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Remember, appreciate the toad for the final time. And I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.